Hey! Zone of the Enders is relevant again. The second runner recently got re-released, and it's in VR now. What? That's incredibly random, but I'm not gonna complain. Because the second runner is an awesome game, and we're going to be talking about it in this very video.
Wait, but you haven't even talked about the first game yet!
Oh yeah, the first game. The first game was released early in the PS2's life. Many people bought it for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, which I didn't even need to mention because everybody already knows about that part. If you look up any videos discussing Zone of the Enders, they will mention that Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. Frankly, I'm sick of hearing about it. And besides, my copy didn't even come with the demo disc because I bought it used.
But Snickety, did you know that the HD collection came with the Metal Gear Rising demo?
I did know that, and so does everyone else, so let's move on. Zone of the Enders 1 is a video game. It has mechs, and it takes about 5 hours to complete if you're not using a walkthrough guide. Now let's talk about the second runner. This game is absolutely
You're cheating! Zone of the Enders 1 deserves a real review! It's the best game in the duology after all.
No one thinks that.
They don't? But Mr. Candriot in your Discord server seems to think so.
What? Okay, I'll do a full video on the first game.
Yay!
If only so we can talk about second runner next.
Ah! Oh, fiddlesticks! I did it again!
The setting is a space colony in the distant future. A good-hearted kid finds an experimental mecha and unwittingly becomes its pilot to protect his homeland. He's then forced to continue using it because of his impressive skills. Not only this, but he's being pursued by an ace pilot in a red mech, who is determined to best him in battle. But enough about the plot of Mobile Suit Gundam. We're here to talk about Zone of the East Enders. ZOE. ZOE. Zone Enders? Zone of Enders? Zenders? We play as Leo Stenbuck and the orbital frame Jehuti. The gameplay is largely a hack and slash, where you explore the space colony Antilia. You complete a variety of objectives so you can get to the other side of the map, which is where the end of the game is. The world of Zenders is split into two. First of all, we have these compact maps where all the action takes place, and then we have the hub world above this, which allows you to fly to different areas. You'll be doing this a lot because much of this game's runtime is spent trying to find out what to do next. There's a fair bit of backtracking involved as you try to find items that will allow you to advance. It usually involves finding a new weapon so you can lower a force field or defeat a boss. This is one of the weaker aspects of the game because it's obvious it's just there to pad out the runtime. Its implementation also leaves a lot to be desired. If you want to leave the area, you have to pick this option from the pause menu. It's right next to the option that takes you back to the title screen. Why isn't it up near the top? I've never actually gone back to the title screen by mistake. I'm not an idiot. But the fact that these two options are so close together just makes me nervous. This game is sadly lacking in variety. That's not its only issue, but that's one of the biggest ones. This game barely has enough content to sustain its meager 5-hour runtime. There's only about 2 enemies you fight in the entire game. There's the frames with the incredibly thin spines, and then there's the heavily armoured types with the dual lasers. There's some variations on these down the line, but yeah. It's the same 2 enemies the entire game, there's no getting around it. And you will get sick of fighting them. There are some decent boss fights that help the variety a little, but there aren't enough of them, and their placement is really weird as well. There's a boss at the start of the game, and then there's none until the last section, where you fight about 3 of them in a short space of time. Repetitious, sure, but the gameplay definitely delivers. Battles are fast and fluid with a dynamic camera that gives you a great sense of the action. Your main attack button switches between melee and weapons depending on your distance from the enemy. It works well and it looks cool, but like I said, it gets old pretty fast. I think a lot of this has to do with the limited amount of strategy involved. That's not to say it's a button masher or anything like that. You do need to actually use your boost to avoid attacks and break through the enemy's guard. However, the strategy you use is pretty much the same every time. Boost and then melee. Rinse and repeat until you win. Since long range attacks have much less risk involved, they basically do no damage. Your standard shots are only really useful during boss fights. You do have this spread shot that you can use while boosting, but it's only really useful for finishing off an enemy when they're low on health. Basically, it does chip damage. You do have this charged up shot, which I like using to get a jump on the enemy when they're out of range, but it's usually too slow to use in the midst of battle. There are a wide selection of sub-weapons to choose from, but most of these are fairly uninteresting and not that effective. These are good for when you eventually get bored of the combat and just want to play around a little. The game does have some very light RPG elements, and I mean bare bones. It's hardly even worth mentioning. You level up as you defeat enemies and you do slightly more damage. At a leisurely pace, you'll be around level 8 or so for the end game. If you rush through it and do only the missions you need to do, you'll be around level 6. And I really didn't notice much of a difference. Something else that reminded me of an RPG is how you engage the enemy. Battles are started when you fly within their range and you can run away at any time.
I recommend you initiate a one-on-one battle in distant condition.
You have lice.
This game feels somewhat half-baked. It doesn't quite feel like a full game. You get Jehuti, you do a bunch of missions, you fight this boss, and then you get to this mission in the gully. It feels like what would be the end of the first act in any other game, but then the game rushes to a conclusion. You settle a score with Viola, who is the Char-like character I alluded to earlier, and then it just ends. It's not good pacing. The first game in this series feels less like its own game and more like a prologue, a tease of what's to come, a proof of concept for the game's sequel, The Second Runner, which fixes all of these issues. But it's sad the game isn't a satisfying experience in its own right. We may as well delve deeper into the story, and address the elephant in the room. Leo Stenbook.
We were just lucky that we survived.
Leo is usually everyone's issue with this narrative, as he can be quite annoying.
I just ran in here while trying to escape. Whoa!
Didn't you see any of our people in the vicinity of Jehuti?
I don't know. You mean that everyone is dead?
That is correct. Good work, sir.
Ah!
He's a naive boy who doesn't want to kill anyone and detests war. You've seen it before. It's a hallmark of mecha anime.
You must pilot Gundam and defend the colony!
The fact that he's an archetype, though, is secondary to his voice acting, which can come off as incredibly whiny and stilted.
Selvis! That is you! Isn't it, Selvis? Are you alright, Selvis?
Leo.
It's a shame because the voice acting in this game can be quite good. You might not remember it as being good if you played this game before, but that's because all the good acting doesn't come from our leads. It comes from Viola, Elena, and perhaps the most important, Ada, Jehuti's onboard AI. She's meant to contrast Leo, a cold machine that acts only on logic, the perfect pragmatist. While Leo refuses to kill a defenseless pilot, Ada is more than willing if it means they can't come back for revenge. It's a discussion of ethics, which has always been a large part of the real robot genre. Neither side is shown to be in the wrong either. Leo's unwillingness to kill Viola almost got his friend killed, but it's also what saved Jehuti from being destroyed.
What you are doing is a contradiction. You say you want to protect people. Are your life and your passengers' lives not also to be protected?
Shut up!
The strongest aspect of the story is Ada's character development. Yes, the emotionless machine is the most compelling character in this game. Figure that one out. You begin to see her learning from Leo and taking some of his beliefs to heart. This leads to some of my favourite scenes in the game, where you really start to feel for Ada as a character. This works because Leo has also come to see Ada as a real person, whose life shouldn't be carelessly thrown away. It's shared by the player.
I am
What?
one of those who need you. I am incapable of feeling sorrow, but do not throw your life away so easily.
And as I mentioned earlier, the voice acting in these scenes, particularly from Cynthia Marsucci as Ada, is compelling stuff. This is only part one of a wider story though. You can't even defeat the final boss, Anubis. He's here for a massive tease for their eventual showdown in the second game.
You two are not destined to meet yet.
And it's a damn good one at that. Never have I seen a game do such a great job of putting over its villain as a genuine threat. You can't even land a hit on him. It's a trade-off though, because while it makes its sequel a much more satisfying experience, it makes this game less satisfying. The first Zone of the Enders is not a bad game by any means, and I wouldn't even say I dislike it. It was a good game for its time. Aside from its story though, it's been made obsolete by its sequel.
This is what I live for. This is the purpose of living. For those who have no life.
No!
So join me next time and we'll be talking about the second run on Mars.
But did you know that it came with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo?
What? Did it? I never knew this.
Yes! Many people bought it for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
Wait, are you saying people bought this game back in the day for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo? Is that what you're telling me right now, Sachi?
Yes, and the HD collection comes with a Metal Gear Rising demo. It's a funny little joke because the original came with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
So the HD collection came with a Metal Gear Rising demo, and the original game came with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
The original game included with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
Came with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. You'll be telling me the HD collection came with a Metal Gear
That is
Rising
exactly
demo.
the case.